In my opinion, Season 7 has been pretty good so far. The buffs and nerfs have been decent, and all of the new stuff like the Diablo event has been quite fun to play. But none of this is anywhere as good as the SOMBRA rework. When I say this was well needed, I mean it. You can't just play her in spectator mode anymore, you have to think about what you're doing, because you can't deploy translocator anymore. Which in turn has made her entire playstyle change to a much more team-based fighter rather than a solo diver. I'll get more into that in a second, but first I'm going to ask you to subscribe and leave a like on this video, as I want to continue making Overwatch 2 related content that's not only entertaining, but educational too. I'm also going to recommend you watch my old SOMBRA guide before the rework, because a few things that I said in that guide still apply to how she's played today. First things first, a very brief kit breakdown as not much has changed. All that happened is that stealth has now been turned into a passive ability that triggers after 3 seconds of not being in combat. Translocator is no longer a deployable and teleports you 0.25 seconds after it's thrown or when it makes contact with terrain. Hacking an enemy no longer gives you a damage boost on said enemy, and a new ability called Virus has been added to her kit, which, if you hit an enemy, does 100 damage over 4 seconds to an enemy who hasn't been hacked, or 100 damage over 2 seconds to an enemy that has been hacked. Naturally, this ability has some very nice synergies, especially with your ult. That brings me on to my first tip for learning how to play the new and improved SOMBRA, and that's to use your virus on enemies that are affected by your hack, because it makes them a lot easier to kill. This seems very obvious, as the faster the enemy dies, the faster your team wins. Being able to deal 100 damage in 2 seconds is wild. Just to remind you, that's half of most other heroes' total health. So in reality, you only have to follow it up with a small amount of damage from your gun. Like I said, this naturally synergizes well with EMP because of how much damage is dealt over a short amount of time. EMP has been nerfed to deal 30% of the enemy's health rather than the old 40% that it used to do. But this doesn't mean that it's a bad ult now. It still absolutely destroys entire teams, especially when you can use Virus to guarantee a kill. You can choose to hit anyone with this in all fairness, even the tank, since you're dealing a bunch of damage. It's like they're a raid boss and you're someone with a bunch of god rolls and an amazing build. The odds are completely in your favour. My second tip for learning how to play SOMBRA 2.0 is to play more alongside your team in the dive rather than solo diving. Yes, you can still solo dive as SOMBRA, but it's much harder to get back to safety after doing so because of the changes to translocator. So it's generally better to go in on a dive with your teammates. Back up your Winstons, Divas and Reinhardts and help them secure kills, rather than going after the enemies in the backline all by yourself, because in the long run, it's going to help you win your match a lot easier. Remember, Overwatch is a team game. Yes, your team may be a bit thick in the head, but working with them is always going to be better than trying to do all the heavy lifting by yourself. My third tip for learning how to play SOMBRA is to use hack to shut down enemy abilities, especially movement abilities, since hacking enemies no longer gives you the extra 25% damage boost. So it's now used more so to help you secure kills with Virus by making it deal damage faster and to shut down enemy abilities. It's especially useful against movement abilities like Reaper's teleport because it means you can easily kill them before they can run away. My fourth and final tip for learning how to play reworked SOMBRA is to simply change your reticle. Yes, I said this in the last SOMBRA guide, but this is actually more important now due to the buffs that her gun received in the rework. Machine Pistol now does 8 damage per bullet and the minimum spread has been reduced to 0, meaning that for the first 6 bullets that you fire, it's practically a point accurate laser. This means that if you're accurate enough, you can get kills very, very easily. Now these settings are ultimately up to you because your reticle is entirely up to your preference. But these are my personal settings. I use a dot and always have show accuracy off because personally it throws me off if my reticle is changing in size constantly. It's supposed to show accuracy, but it makes me less accurate. That's kind of ironic if you ask me. And that's it for learning how to play the new and improved SOMBRA. Like I said before, make sure to check out the old video from before she was reworked because some of the things from that video still apply to her now, like how to use your ult and when to use it. In general, I think these changes make her a lot more fun to play because you have to think about what you're doing and plan your attack accordingly with your team rather than be a solo fighter. Yes, you can get a lot of value out of solo diving the backline, but you risk getting Adam smashed by doing so since your translocator is very different now. Anyways, that's the end of this video. Once again, I'm going to ask you to like this video as it lets me know that you find these videos not only to be helpful, but entertaining. Let me know if you have any requests for other heroes in the comments below, and subscribe so you don't miss that guide when it comes out. There are some heroes that I probably won't be able to make a guide on, simply because I don't play them enough. But there are many more heroes on the list that I can make guides on than I can't make guides on. Finally, have a nice day or night if you're watching this at night, and make sure to check out my other videos. Not only will I appreciate it, but you might too.